Hi, I'm Ruth Freeman, licensed clinical social worker and founder of Peace at Home Parenting Solutions. I'm happy to introduce you to Peace at Home educator, AC Neal. AC is a licensed professional counselor who specializes in sexual and gender identity formation. Parents appreciate AC's down-to-earth advice that she offers with warmth and humor. She has a deep commitment to social justice and helps parents feel like partners in the learning process. So let's get started. Enjoy your class, and remember, we're here to answer your questions.
Hi, my name is AC Neal. I am a licensed professional counselor, and I am here today to talk to you about how to help your LGBTQ plus child thrive. To start out with, what I'm hoping to convey and communicate today is identifying the increased risk faced by LGBTQ plus youth, how to build a strong, positive connection with your child that will help keep them safe, that will mitigate the risk, recognizing signs of peer pressure and bullying, and recognizing warning signs that your child needs more help, that you need to go outside of the family, maybe outside of the school for some additional support. Talking about risks, and some of these risks could include cyberbullying, internet bullying, which I'm sure everyone is aware of, risky sexual behaviors, substance abuse, self-harm in the form of cutting, maybe pulling hair, and homelessness. Sort of the thesis of what I'm hoping to communicate is that loving and accepting families are going to significantly help protect youth, your children, from the increased risk discussed in the slide just before this one. Strong, positive relationships are the basis of strong, of positive, of stable mental health. Two huge things you can do as a parent or a guardian of a child who identifies as LGBTQ plus is spending quality time together, going to the movies, going out to dinner, playing board games, taking a hike, anything that your child enjoys doing, engaging in that with them, and reflecting on ways of listening, talking, and connecting, asking your child, what is it that you need from me? Maybe identifying it's easier for your child to talk to you when you're driving in the car, when you're hiking, when you're playing a game, when you're watching a movie together, and listening, actively listening to what they need. How to respond skillfully to unwanted behaviors. So, remembering, just like a toddler, just like an infant, behavior is communication. Teenagers are going to sort of resort back to some of the developmental behaviors that they expressed as infants, as toddlers. They're not acting out, they're reaching out. They're trying to communicate something, to convey something through their behavior. Approach the behavior with curiosity. So instead of responding to the risky behavior, instead of responding to the acting out in school, saying, what are you trying to tell me? I see that you're doing this. I hear that you're saying this at school, that you're acting out. What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to communicate? What's underneath all of this? And you don't need to respond right away. Oftentimes in parenting, there can be a real knee-jerk reaction, particularly to a behavior that is unwanted, that is risky, that is disruptive. Taking time to pause, to reflect, talking to your partner, to a friend, your own therapist, perhaps, reflect on it before you respond. Connecting positively with your child to build a sense of safety and self-acceptance. Again, going back, noticing, accepting, and reflecting your child's feelings. I hear you say this. Is that accurate? Respond warmly and positively to child's talk and body language. Staying open, staying curious. Keeping your child's age and stage in mind and matching expectations. This is really important. Remembering that the research and the data shows us that our brains are not fully developed until around 25 years of age. So if you think you have a 15-year-old, they have a decade to go before their brains are fully developed. So thinking my kid has a 15-year-old brain, I have a, let's say, 40-year-old brain. So obviously they're not going to think about things in the same way. They're not going to understand consequences. They're not going to see behaviors maybe as risky as we would view them. Accept your child as a unique person, right? Their temperament, their preferences, their interests, their disposition. We're all born with our own personalities. Yes, they may be your child. They may be, a person that you gave birth to, and they are their own person. They are going to respond sometimes differently and act differently than maybe we would have. Allow your child to experiment. Allow them to explore. Allow them to fail. Learning through, consequences, through behaviors is really important. That's how most of us do it. Failing is okay. Learning how to get yourself back up and get back in it is really important for the development. Express interest in your child's points of view and opinions. Why do you feel that way? What made you draw that conclusion? Have you had experiences that would lead you to believe that? Staying open, again, staying curious, asking questions. And again, just going back to just good old fashioned spending quality time together with your child. So moving on to the sort of social interactions, peer relationships, as most of us know, can be both helpful and they can also be harmful. Peer pressure. People are social, right? We are social creatures. We are hardwired as mammals to depend on one another. We cannot survive birth to 3, birth to 5 without someone feeding us, without someone taking care of us. Our brains develop differently if we're not nurtured, if we don't feel attached, if our basic needs are not met. And of course, teens, they need peer relationships in order to grow and develop in healthy ways. They need that community, that social interaction. They need that sense of belonging. Our brain activity changes when we're teenagers, alone or with friends. There's a lot of data, a lot of research to back this up. Most of us heard, if your friends jump off a bridge, are you going to do it too? And I think that's what that's based in. If we're by ourselves, if a 15-year-old is by themselves, they're more than likely going to be different. Their behavior is going to be different than if they were with their friends, for better or for worse. And so that's really important to keep in mind. And peer pressure affects the brain. Kids are more likely to engage in risky behavior when peers are watching. That connects directly to the one we just talked about. Again, the old jumping off the bridge, saying that most of us heard growing up and that some of us may even still be repeating. If your friends are watching, you're trying to, show that you're brave, bravado, that you can take risk, that whatever it is, you're trying to impress your peers. Teenagers are going to act differently at times than they would if they were alone or even with family members. Social media. So yeah, it's a brave new world and we're all in it as individuals, as adults, as parents, and also, sort of witnessing the impact, both good and bad, that it has on our children. Likes and other activities on social media has a very powerful effect on your teen's brain. When photos and posts, TikTok stories get lots of attention, certain parts of the brain get active, their dopamine, serotonin, those transmitters get sent, and it feels good. So you get a hit, you want more. that's the addictive quality of social media that most of us are dealing with. And that's what keeps teens hooked on their phones. That's what keeps them, rehearsing for TikToks, making videos, posting, curated photos of themselves on Instagram. They get those likes, they get that attention, and they get that dopamine, they get that serotonin, and it feels really good. And again, most people that age are not going to understand the long-term consequences of something negative or harmful that they could be posting on social media. Bullying. So there's a distinction between bullying and peer pressure. Bullying is unwanted, aggressive, or hostile behavior from someone else. It can be observed or perceived power imbalance. So maybe someone doing the bullying is older, maybe they're in a position of authority, and it can be a repetition of behaviors, or there's a high likelihood of repetition. So there's, over the course of several days, over the course of several years, months, whatever it is, sort of the same types of hostile and aggressive and unwanted behaviors from someone else. Bullying can be direct. Someone can be using hate speech, using derogatory language towards your child in front of, a group of their peers. It can be indirect. It can be spreading rumors. It can be, obviously things on social media. Physical, unfortunately, it can become physical. Oftentimes it's verbal, relational. Let's say two people are friends or in the same friend group. Bullying can definitely happen within that. And then damage to property, unfortunately, vandalism, screwing with someone's locker, with their car, with their home, with their phone, sort of taking anything that belongs to that person that's important to them, and vandalizing it, stealing it, perhaps. So yellow flags. Yellow flags are, I'm not going to totally raise the alarm here, but I need to start paying attention and getting support if you notice any of these things. A change in your child's mood, a change in their appetite. They're eating a lot less or a lot more. Sleep, again, a lot more, a lot less. Relationships, they're not hanging out with a best friend that they've hung out with for years. They're maybe a relationship is over. They're hanging out with a new crowd of kids that you don't know, you've never heard of, maybe you haven't heard the best things about. In school performance, typically it's going to be their grades start to slip. Maybe they start skipping school. Teachers, administrators are calling and saying, I've noticed, their grades are slipping. They're not turning their homework in. They used to always do this. So any of those things you've noticed, you want to start paying attention to. Red flags. Now, this is when you want to sort of jump into action. And the biggest one of those, the one I'm really going to focus on, is talking about or taking action to harm themselves or someone else. So imminent harm to self or others is the language that we use in the field of mental health. Where should you go for help? Going back to yellow flags, again, open, curious communication. I've noticed that you're sleeping a lot less. I see the light on in your room when I get up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock. Or I can't get you out of bed. It's never taken so long to get you out of bed in the morning. It seems like you just want to sleep all day. Doesn't seem like you're eating as much as you used to. Is anything going on? Mrs. Smith said you're not turning your homework in anymore. What's happening? Is there anything you need to talk about? Staying curious, asking open-ended questions. If you feel like your child could use clinical support, a child psychologist, maybe a guidance counselor, an adjustment counselor, a therapist, please reach out to their pediatrician, to their PCP, a teacher, for a licensed professional. who can specialize and who specializes in LGBTQ plus youth. That could be an incredibly helpful thing to get some outside support for you and your child. And keeping in mind that it could take a while to be seen by a professional, particularly in light of the increased anxiety and depression we've seen in adolescents due to COVID these last almost 2 years. Where should you go for help, particularly when there's red flags? You can always bring your child to the emergency room for a clinical assessment. If they feel that your child is at imminent self to others, they will admit your child and they will keep them until they feel like they are stable. You can always call 911, of course, that's what they're for. And you can call 211. I know in the state of Connecticut, this is a number that will connect you to mental health support resources. Oftentimes, trained clinical professionals will come to your home to help de-escalate or to provide resources and services for you and your family. So some takeaways. LGBTQ plus youth are at a greater risk than their peers. This is due to a number of reasons: societal, maybe systemic issues within the family, some intolerance around that. Positive communication with your child is going to keep the communication open. It's also going to model that a healthy relationship that you want your child to engage in. Strong connections are going to help protect your child against peer pressure and bullying. If things are solid and supportive and loving and warm in the home, they're less likely to succumb to peer pressure. They're more likely to talk to you about things that are going on around bullying or around maybe potential drug use, self-harm, those types of behaviors. Peer pressure, as we all know, it's ever present. It can come in good forms. It can come in not so good forms. It's always going to be there. It's around our children. Staying open, staying warm is going to increase the chances that they are going to come home to you and talk to you about it. Bullying can come in several forms. It can be physical, verbal, emotional. It can be property damage. Recognizing the symptoms of those yellow and red flags and asking for help, seeking resources, because they are out there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. There are printouts, there are handouts for you to print. If you have questions, if you need more support, there are live classes, there are monthly Q&A sessions that Peace at Home Parenting provide. There are privately monitored Facebook groups. And of course, there's always the option of one-on-one private coaching for a more sort of individualized approach to any of these issues. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Take care.